So there's two things I want to discuss today, both regarding the news in Texas. Okay. One, the news got on there and stated that, because I live in Dallas Fort Worth, by the way, so I get local news of what's happening in Dallas Fort Worth. So the news stated that Dallas Fort Worth has $24 million that is allocated or supposed to be for rental assistance for Texans in Dallas or Fort Worth. If you live in this area, if you live in the Metroplex, they have $24 million, and that they've had it for the start of the pandemic, so a little bit over a year, because that happened March 2020, and we're now in June. So about the last year and 3 months, they've had this $24 million meant for rental assistance, right, you guys? It's meant to go to people to stop them from being evicted. It's also utility assistance, so keep their water on, it'll keep their lights on, things like that. And basically, the news was stating how they've only spent $500,000 of it in Fort Worth, and they've spent $1 million of it in Dallas in the last year and 3 months, and how they are hoping that more people will start to apply. Okay, let me stop you there. Most people would think, oh, that's awesome, that's great, that's a lot of money that they have to spend. I'm thinking the opposite, because not only did they say Dallas and Fort Worth has $24 million for just the residents in the Metroplex, but they also stated how the state of Texas as a whole has $1 billion. That's one whopping $1 billion, you guys, in every city and county combined in Texas for rental assistance. All I can think is, one, if you guys have had this money for a year and 3 months, and you're meaning to tell me that at the highest peak of when everybody was laid off and fired from work, there was 90% of Texas fired and laid off, and everybody was struggling, and people are still struggling. We still have 1 million Texans out of work, right? So you're telling me that you've had, just in Dallas Fort Worth, you've had $24 million meant for rental and utility assistance, but yet I have seen so many people in Dallas and Fort Worth be evicted. I've seen them lose their homes because they can't afford their mortgages. I've seen them lose their cars, their electricity get cut off, their water being cut off. I've seen so many things, and you mean to tell me that you guys have had $24 million the entire time? The entire time. Not to mention, the state of Texas has $1 billion. So the first thing I would like to think is, why has the process been so hard for the rental assistance applications? We all know about Texas rental relief or Texas rent relief. I've had so many people tell me it's taken them 3 to 4 to even 5 months to even get their applications started to process. Basically, you submit your application with your information, and then it has to get processed. It's taking on average 3 to 5 months to even get your application start processing. That does not mean approved. That means they're just starting to process it and go over it. So by the time they even start processing it, you're most likely being evicted at that point. 3 to 5 months. Not to mention that the application is being so difficult. They are asking for every single thing. And when I say asking for every single thing, I mean they are requiring so much. They're not just asking for your ID. They're not just asking for your social security number. They're not just asking for your address or your lease or anything like that. They want to know bank statements. They want to speak with your landlord. They want your landlord to fill out paperwork. They want your landlord to fax things back to them and agree to it. They want you to prove how COVID affected you. My apologies. They want you to prove how COVID has affected you. They are wanting everything. They are wanting W-2 forms. They are wanting proof of your last 7-8 payments of your rent. They are wanting proof of everybody on the lease. They are wanting proof of everybody's income on the lease and all their bank statements as well. They are requiring everything. And just when you think you've given them everything, they start requiring even more stuff. The stuff that they're asking for doesn't even make sense because you've already proved everything. Your lease, your address, your rent. They want you to prove how much you owe and things like that. And so once you feel like you've already proved all this, then they start asking you for more stuff. And it is such a difficult process to get approved. To the people who actually were approved to apply, congrats to you, because anybody who's applied for it knows how hard it is to get approved for these programs, okay? So I understand they have to make sure that you really in need of this help before they just give it to you, because we know there's such people that do take advantage of things. But when you're sitting on $24 million between two cities, that's just two cities in Texas, and there's $1 billion total in Texas for rental assistance, and you're making it almost impossible to be approved to get help rental assistance, it's a problem. It's a problem because people are being evicted left and right. People are losing all types of stuff. They've already lost their incomes. They've already lost their jobs. They've already lost their businesses. They've already lost their 401ks. And now they're also losing their home because they applied for your program 3 or 4 months and you ago, and you still haven't approved them. You're still putting them through loopholes. You haven't, and so it's too little too late once they do approve you, if they even do approve you, because a lot of times you're not even hearing back. You might not even get a call or email or anything back from these caseworkers, and even harassing them isn't going to get you paid. So that's my first problem with it. 2, my second issue is $1 billion, correct? That I'm sure we have to pay taxes on, and that we're going to owe in some type of way, shape, or form or fashion. Eventually, it's $1 billion meant for Texas, that meant for Texans to have rental relief. Texans are not receiving this rental relief because, as I stated with problem number 1, it's too impossible to even get the help when applying. So Texans aren't even receiving this rental relief. It's $1 billion meant for us. It's allocated for us to help us during these hard times with our rent. We're not receiving it. That's problem number 1. And number 2 is I'm pretty sure we will have to pay this back in some type of way, whether our taxes go up or things like that. It's a debt, pretty much. That's exactly what it is. It's a debt because this $1 billion came out of the stimulus packages. So it was meant, when these stimulus packages were signed, they had a certain amount of money that went to every single state to help the state with their residents. Clearly, Greg Abbott is not helping his residents. The state of Texas is not helping their residents. So we're just sitting on $1 billion that isn't being used. It hasn't been used in over a year and 3 months. That's why they still have it. And yet we're going to have to pay taxes on it. Like I said, it's putting us in debt. I don't mind being in debt, but I mind being in debt for something that I didn't benefit from, if that makes sense. Like, if we're going to be in debt and we're going to have to pay higher taxes and stuff because we had help for 6 months of rental assistance, I don't mind paying that. But when none of us are being assisted, but yet we're going to have higher taxes and things, that's when I have the problem. I have a problem with having higher taxes or being in debt as a state for money that none of us benefited from or received. And then number 3, this is my question here. Where is this money going? Okay, so let's say it's all over the pandemic, correct? Since Greg Abbott's claiming that the state of Texas is 100% back open, where does this money now go to? Where is this money going to? It's not going back to Congress. I mean, it's not going back to the stimulus package. They already allocated that money. They already printed the money. They've already sent the money to Texas. So where is that money going? Is it going to Greg Abbott? Is it going to the politicians in Texas? Is it going to his peers? I would honestly like to know where is this money going? Because it was meant for us. We didn't get it. We haven't got it. It's not helping anybody that you know. How many people do you know that have gotten evicted? How many people do you know that are struggling in Texas right now to pay their bills? How many people do you know that are financially struggling to keep their lights on or things like that? So it's not going to you. It's not going to your neighbors. It's not going to anybody you know. So where is this money going to? I'm assuming it's going to go to Greg Abbott and his politicians and peers. It might go to the mayor of Dallas or Fort Worth or anything. I don't know. But the fact is, this is a whole problem. Another thing the news put out there today because now we're changing the subject to the latest thing that the news put out. Last week, I had posted about how Texas is headed for an economical crash recession. Okay. The news confirmed that today. So if you'd like to go to Google and put how Texas will be facing a $3.5 billion loss due to the unemployment being cut off 3 months early, go look that up, and so you can watch the news video because the news has posted that today. So yes, I had posted this originally last week, as I stated, how this would affect the employed just as much as it would affect the unemployed. And I kind of explained for 35 minutes how it's going to lead Texas to a recession, how it's going to hurt the employed just as much as the unemployed. And so the news confirmed that today they did financial predictions. You know how usually they predict like financial, pretty much like financial estimate of what will occur. And the news stated that with the decision of cutting off the unemployment, that Texas will be facing a $3.5 billion loss. Okay? Just for those extra 2.5 months that the unemployment got cut off, that is losing a total of $3.5 billion. Keep in mind, though, it makes sense. When you have over 400,000 to 1 million Texans on unemployment, and they're losing 2.5 months of income each. Excuse me, I'm smoking, you guys. So they're losing 2.5 months of income each, correct? It would equal about, like as the news said, $3.5 billion loss to the economy. So for them to put such a number that high on there only goes to prove what recession we're about to hit and be into here soon. Because when you take away $3.5 billion from the Texas economy, that's not from America, that's from the Texas economy. When you're taking a huge number like that away from the economy, you have to realize how bad that's going to hurt businesses. $3.5 billion loss means even more businesses are about to do layoffs because the business is going to be slow. More businesses are about to probably permanently shut down from just that drastic amount of income loss, as well as that will only increase the amount of people who cannot spend into the economy. Because when businesses have to lay off more employees, or they have to shut down permanently, or the landlords and things aren't being paid because it's a $3.5 billion taken away from the Texas economy, that's even more people who cannot go out and spend. And like as I said in the last video, think of your job. What does your job entail if you're employed? What is your job? So if you take away 80% of your customers, do you still have a job? So Greg Abbott's him and his peers have not only stolen $1 billion meant for Texans, meant for rental assistance for Texans that they were given over a year and 3 months ago that we have never received, that they still have to this day. Not only have they stolen from us, but now they are leading us to an huge economical crash, recession, correct? And I guarantee they will try to pinpoint this on Democrats. Since Biden is the president, they'll try to make it seem like we're in this horrible recession, economical crash and struggle due to them. But it's really by Greg Abbott's choices and the Republican choices. No Democrats have pulled out of the extra unemployment for their state. So we're going to watch how these states thrive, and we're going to watch how hard it is for our states. I can already, for our states that are Republican, specifically Texas, since that's where I live. I already know that there's about to be tent cities like no other come July. So many people, or August, July and August pretty much. So many people are going to be homeless and evicted. There's going to be, the crime rate is fixing to spike, because I've always told people, desperate people will do desperate things during desperate measures. If your child is hungry, if y'all's lights are off, if your water is not on, if you don't have gas in your car, If you need to wash your clothes and you're in dirty clothes because you can't afford to wash them. If you're struggling and don't know how you're going to pay the rent and you have 2 eviction notices, you don't know what people are capable of doing in those type of situations. Those are crunch time situations, and people's minds don't act and do not think the same during hard times and periods like that. During times like this, where people have to feed their kids and they have to keep a roof over their head and they have to keep the lights or water on so their kids can bathe, and you have babies and things, people will do very desperate things, okay? They're in desperate times. So do you think the crime rate won't go up? Do you think people won't be breaking in homes or probably committing robberies or theft at Walmarts and places? Yes, it's bound to happen. So not only is the crime rate going to spike because that's just what happens during self-preservation. It's mentally people trying to survive and doing drastic things to do that. So meaning crime will go up. But Greg Abbott, he has no care in the world, you guys. He makes over $157,000 a year. He lives in $1 million mansion, probably a few millions of dollars, and he has no worries because he is the biggest person on unemployment. If you ask me, he's been in office 6 years and he's been on unemployment this entire time because he does not work. He gets paid off of Texans working and paying taxes, and that's his salary. So if anybody is on unemployment and shouldn't be bashing those on unemployment, it should honestly be Greg Abbott. Because think about it. How does he make his salary? He makes his salary off of Texans and the taxes we pay. So he has no worries in the world. He doesn't understand that he's about to crash our economy by the decision he made to cut off the unemployment June 26th. But then also to find out today from the news that there's $1 billion in Texans, or in Texas, my apologies. $1 billion in Texas that is being sat on and not being spent for what it's allocated for, which is rental assistance, but they're not giving it out to anybody. And they've been sitting on it for a year and 3 months since this first stimulus bill. And I've watched dozens of people post on unemployment groups in Texas and things that their cars are being repoed, that they're being evicted, that they're going to courts and stuff, and all this stuff. And the whole time, this entire time, all that could have been prevented. That's what they're saying. All that could have been prevented. You wouldn't have lost your furniture. You wouldn't have lost your house. You wouldn't have lost your cars. You wouldn't have lost your clothes. You and your family wouldn't be out on the streets had they gave you $1,000 even out that $24 million in Dallas. Think about it. They had $24 million. They could have gave one person $3,000, paid 3 months of their rent, and that person would have never even been evicted. That's what it was meant for, but that person didn't receive it. Because I'm pretty sure that person applied and couldn't even get approved or processed because that's how hard they have made it. And they've made it that hard so it can go to their own pockets. And then I'm going to pretty much try to wrap this up, but I have one more thing I have to say. Greg Abbott states that Texas is 100% open, you guys. That's what he says. He says Texas is 100% open. If it's 100% open, then why can't you go tour his mansion? Because typically before COVID, you could tour his mansion. They're not giving out tours there. Another thing, you can't go to the DMV office. You can't go to the Social Security office. You can't go to the DPS office or anything to go get your ID. You have to book an appointment. Everything is online. With the Social Security office, they want you to mail in your birth certificate and things, and then they will mail you your social back. You can't just walk in there. And so if these places are if Texas is supposedly 100% open, how come everything regarding those offices that are dealing with the state and dealing with the government are not open? But you're saying Texas is 100% open. And to the jobs, any of these jobs, if you get on Indeed, and you're browsing around on Indeed, you see 99.9% of all the call center jobs or the customer service jobs are requiring you to be remote. They want you to work at home, which means you need to have high-speed internet and you need to have a computer, which 50% of people don't have. 50% of people do not have high-speed internet, 3.5 gigabytes or whatever, and they also do not have computers or home phones either. So that right there proves that Texas is not 100% open. We're not even probably 50% open. And then, not to mention, when you're interviewing in Texas, you don't go in for an interview. They want you to interview virtually. That means they want you to interview over the phone on a video call. Okay? You're not even going up there in person. So how could the businesses be 100% open? Another thing that I'm seeing, and speaking on how Texas is not 100% open, the Walmarts still aren't open 24 hours. Nothing's really open 24 hours. Most of these businesses, but he has the nerve to say that Texas is 100% open, yet his office isn't even open at all to the public. Make it make sense. And another thing I had learned last week that I wanted to make a video and share, but I didn't get the chance to because I've been a little bit busy myself. I realized and I learned, not only did I learn, but I ended up realizing it during my learning experience, that jobs by law have to post positions that they have available, correct? So, for example, say Walmart laid off 6,000 workers during COVID. Now that those 6,000 positions, they might be reopening or rehiring, they have to by law post that. That doesn't mean that those 6,000 positions aren't filled, because one, they have to ask those that they furloughed, they have to offer them the position back first before hiring anyone else. So if your job, for example, furloughed 5 people, they by law have to post that job online, saying that they're hiring for 5 positions. But before they can hire anybody for those 5 positions, they have to offer the 5 people they furloughed that job back. So just because the job is posting it online doesn't mean that the job is actually available. Okay? 2, a lot of companies promote within. We all know this. If you've ever worked, you know that a lot of times you get promoted within. For example, let's just say Taco Cabana, a restaurant, it's a fast food restaurant. Let's say that Taco Cabana is hiring for a manager or shift lead. They might post it online because they have to. So they might say, now hiring shift lead at Taco Cabana near you. So you might apply for this job, but that position may already be filled. They might have already promoted an employee that they've had for 3 years to that manager position. But by law, they had to post it online. So you're applying for jobs that are not actually available. Okay? So I had learned this last week. Not to mention, as I said, they have to ask those that they furloughed. They have to offer them the position first. And also, most companies do promote within. They pretty much don't bring outsiders in to take over as a manager or a GM, things like that. So half the jobs you're applying to online, they posted them online just because they have to, but that does not mean that those jobs are actually available. So when GREG ABBOTT stated that there's 1 million jobs or some crap, he said some number, there's 1,000 jobs hiring. I think he might have said more, but I don't know an exact number. Did he ever take into consideration these laws that these jobs have to post online that they're hiring, but they're probably already fulfilled and not actually really available? I don't even think he considered that. I don't think he considered anything. And how dare he stomp on us, the people in Texas who have elected him. He forgets about, takes away the unemployment, steals $1 billion, him and his politician peers in Texas, that they are supposed to give out to rental assistance this entire year and haven't. But he didn't discuss any of this with any of us. But we put him in office. And you know what? GREG ABBOTT is probably eating a ribeye steak and potatoes tonight why so many Texans are evicted and eating ramen noodles, or probably not eating at all. I've seen so many people homeless and things like that and just struggling so bad right now. And so he's probably eating steak and ribeye and potatoes and lobster and crab tonight for dinner. And it's off the taxes. It's off the taxes that we all worked for our whole lives and paid for him to eat that stuff. And he could care less about any of us, him and his politician peers. And the quote and hashtag that everybody should be getting out of this, I don't care if you're a Republican, I don't care if you're a Democrat, we need to get him out of office. Him and pretty much anybody, any Democrat, any Republican who has let this in Texas go on, knowing all this that's occurring and turning blind eyes to him. But that's what I'm going to say for tonight. Those are the 3 things I wanted to discuss. They're all on the news. Feel free to Google them all and watch the videos from the news. The prediction of the $3.5 billion that Texas will be facing in loss of income come June 26th, that the news has stated, from the unemployment being cut off, which again is going to affect everybody, even if you're employed, because you need customers with money at your place of business to have a job. Also, watch how Texas has $1 billion of rental relief assistance that they have had this entire pandemic, and that they still have. And where is that money going to? Nobody knows. And then also go look up the law saying how jobs have to post positions even when they're not available. But by law, they have to post those online. So that can be something you guys can look up. One thing I can tell you, if you're not registered to vote this year, all these things better be pushing you to vote. You better be doing whatever you can this week to make sure you get registered to vote. Not just alone from this stuff, but from the Texas winter storm to the immigration that Greg Abbott has just tried to do, where the immigration people cannot house the children anymore, to him trying to control women's bodies, and everything in general that Greg Abbott, he has done so much BS this entire month of stuff, even trying to force people's paychecks not to go out until they agree with him on signing a bill. Basically, he's acting like a tyrant in Texas. He's stealing our money, and we need President Biden or Congress. We need somebody who can come into Texas and get this under control. He is gone off the loophole here. He is, in the last 2 weeks, if you're not from Texas, or even if you are from Texas, I want you to go look up all what Greg Abbott has done and what all laws he's tried to pass, voter suppression and things. There's no way, and I'm at a loss how Biden hasn't spoke up or done anything yet. I'm actually very disgusted with him. I'm disgusted with him and pretty much everybody outside of Texas watching to see all what Greg Abbott has done, and they have done nothing to try to stop any of this. And it's not legal. How can something that was signed by the president, signed by Congress, that has been allocated for every American, it's called the American Rescue Plan, how can the governor go above the president? How can the governor go above Congress, Nancy Pelosi and all them, and decide to rip it out under our feet? How does he have the authority? It doesn't even seem legal. And I was reading on this one article where basically it's not legal. But President Biden, I guess he doesn't want to step on the toes of Greg Abbott or any Republican governor, so he's kept quiet on the situation, which has really upset me with him as well. At this point, it's the politicians against the people, and that's how you should see it. Whether you're Republican, whether you're Democrat, at this point, it's politicians against the people. They don't care about us. We're below the poverty line to them. They use us to get rich and profit off and then discard us. Our lives are meaningless. Our situations are meaningless to them. So with that being said, you guys share your thoughts and get back to me. Y'all stay blessed.